Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. This week's video, I want to attempt to answer a question I see posted up online actually quite regularly. And that question is usually based around whether or not you can actually have a GTR if you have something a little bit extra in the house. And by little extra, I mean one of these. That's right, it seems like ever so often online someone is posting up asking like, hey, I have a GTR, I'm about to have a baby, can I still use my GTR? Or somebody might be like, I already have some kids, but I'd love to buy a GTR, can I use it as a family car? So that's what we're gonna attempt to try and figure out this week. However, before we head out to the GTR, two things. One, if you do like automotive, particularly GTR content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And two, if you'd like to support the channel, I do have the JD Archer shop. If you go to jdarcher.bigcartel.com, you can see a limited selection of hats, t-shirts, and hoodies I've designed that are for sale. With that out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and put this little guy down and head out to the GTR and see if we can't answer the question, is the GTR also a family car? All right, here we are outside and we can finally start talking about whether or not the R35 GTR can be used as a family car. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is obviously the main thing that everybody asks when they're trying to figure out whether or not they can get an R35 and use it if they have youngsters, and that is, will a car seat fit in the back seat? Now, as you may know, the R35 GTR does have a back seat, but it's not a very big back seat. In fact, I do discuss being able to fit people in the back in my video, or I discuss whether or not the R35 GTR is a good daily driver. If you haven't seen that video, I will post a link in the description down below, as well as a banner above my head in case you want to check out that video. But basically, when I'm talking about the rear seat, it boils down to this. You can actually fit an adult in the back seat, but pretty much only on the passenger side, because there is a deceptive amount of space underneath the dash on the passenger side of the car with the front seat, which means the passenger can really move that seat forward and give the person in the back enough space. But they're probably not going to be back there for an extended period of time because you got the sloped roof. Now, fortunately in this case, yes, as you can see, I can get a car seat into the back without an issue. It clears the seat and gets in there really easily. However, as you can see, my kid is still pretty young, which means I still have to have a rear-facing car seat, and that eats up a lot of space, which means I really have to move that passenger seat farther forward. Now, I'm very fortunate that my wife is literally 5'0". She's a little shorty, which means she can actually fit in the passenger seat with it that far forward without an issue and no complaints. Now, as you can see, I do get into the car with the seat in that position and I can fit, but my knees are pretty much right up against the dash. Now, I'm 5'10", so if you have a spouse that's taller than me, they probably aren't gonna be able to fit. But fortunately, that is just a temporary issue. Now, as I did say, the car seat that I'm using now is a rear-facing car seat, which means when my kid gets old enough, I'll be able to take that car seat and turn it to a front-facing car seat. And all of a sudden, that top of the car seat and the bonnet are now facing the back, which means they're not in the way of the seat, and the seat will be able to be positioned farther back. So to answer the question, yes, you can run a car seat in the GTR without an issue. Now, as a little note to this, you may be wondering, am I worried about damaging the seats of my car? Because, you know, I now have a car seat strapped down. And the answer to that is actually not really. As you can see in the footage, I do have a pad that is specifically designed for cars to put a car seat on, and it protects the leather from the car seat. Now, if you're watching this video and you either have a young one on the way, or you already have a youngster and you're thinking about picking up an R35 GTR, I'm gonna leave a link to all the equipment I use. I'm gonna have a link to that car seat, which is really cool because it clicks into a base and can become a stroller, as well as that pad. So if that's something you need for your car, just go ahead and check the description. There'll be a link, it'll take you exactly where you need to go to get that. Okay, so now we've determined that pretty much, yes, you can fit a car seat in the back of this car and run around with really not too much of an issue. And for most people that have been asking about whether or not they can either get a GTR while having a kid or have a kid while owning a GTR, that pretty much is the main concern that they have. However, there are some other things you should probably consider. And that is, when you have a kid, you're gonna find yourself having to tote more gear than you're probably used to doing when you were running around by yourself or just dating. And that's because, you know, kids, you have to take like their toys, their diaper bags, you know, you might have a stroller and various other gear that you probably just aren't thinking of off the top of your head. And so the issue is, can you also take all that stuff with you? And the answer to that is pretty much yeah. The GTR has an amazingly huge trunk. Now, as you can see, there is one limitation when it comes to the trunk, and it's pretty darn obvious, and that's just the opening. It's a pretty darn small opening, which means anything you take with you is gonna have to clear that opening. But despite that, the GTR has a ridiculously huge trunk. Now, as you can see, here I am loading up some of the gear I typically have to take with me. Here you see the stroller attachment. As a side note, really cool thing, that stroller attachment is just the wheels. It's designed so that the car seat can click into it and the car seat becomes the stroller. And it also has this bassinet attachment, which means if I don't want to be in the car seat, I just want to lay them down, there's a bassinet as well. Now, of course, I also fit all of my camera gear in here today, as well as the diaper bag, blanket, and a few toys. So yes, you can carry a lot of stuff with you. And I didn't show today, but I have done it before, the bassinet attachment, which is a tub. It's about this big, about this tall. I fit that in there as well with all of this gear. So really, yeah, you can carry a lot of stuff that you might need for your kid. Now, in the odd sense that you actually run out of space with the trunk, which is something I haven't had an issue. In fact, I've even gone grocery shopping with the kid. You still have the rear driver's side seat where if you need to store a little bit more stuff, there is more space. But basically, yes, this car has enough space to carry everything you need to keep your kid happy. The last thing I want to talk about is something that actually a few people have asked about, and that is whether or not the car is a soft enough ride to carry your kid around. I mean, let's be honest, when you buy the GTR, you're not buying a luxury car with a cloud smooth suspension where you basically float down the road and everything's super cush. You're buying a car that was meant to feel every bump in the road so you get the most information you can while you're taking the car to the limit. And let's be honest, if you're sitting there running around with an infant, having extremely rough suspension may cause an issue. Like they might not like it, they might start crying, maybe it starts jostling their head around too much and creates an issue. Well, the answer to whether or not this car is okay to carry kids in is kind of a two-part question because the suspension changed on the GTR in 2015. Now my car is a 2013. So from 2009 to 2014, this car was known for having a super stiff suspension. Now, they do have different modes for the suspension, which you can have it in regular mode, comfort mode, and R mode, depending on what it is you're doing that day. And unfortunately, with the 09s to the 14s, putting in comfort mode really doesn't make a huge difference. Now, if you daily drive the car like I do, you will notice a slightly smoother ride, but it's really not that much different from regular mode, although it is quite different from R mode. In 2015, they retuned the suspension, so when you put it in comfort mode, it does make a difference. Now, I have test driven, I believe it was a 2015 I test drove, and when I put it in comfort mode, yes, there was a huge difference. The suspension got way softer, way smoother. So if you have a 2015 on up, I wouldn't worry about it at all. You put the kid in the back, you put the suspension in comfort mode, you're going to be fine. But with that being said, even with my 2013 with the stiffer suspension, my little guy really hasn't had much of an issue. In fact, I think he rather enjoys it. Despite the stiff suspension, he sits back there without an issue, and probably about 90% of the time, by the time I'm getting where I'm going, he's already passed out back there. Now, as you can see, he's perfectly happy driving around. He's having a good old time. So as long as you're driving as someone should with a kid in the back, you're really not gonna have an issue. You can put a kid in this car and drive around and they're not gonna have much of an issue. And there it is, an answer to the question of can the R35 GTR be used as a family car? Well, to me, the answer is 100% yes. And that's because I do it. I use it to tote my kid and wife around. I use it as my daily driver. So in that, I use it as a family car without really too much of an issue. And you probably shouldn't have an issue too, provided your partner isn't over really 5'10" that's riding in the passenger seat. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, go hit that thumbs up button to let me know. It does help the channel out a lot. As I said before, if you'd like to see more automotive, particularly GTR content in the future, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on all forms of social media, which include Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. I'll leave links to all those in the description down below. If you're interested in the car seat I use because it's got that cool attachment that makes it a stroller, or the pad I use to protect my rear seats, those will also be listed in the description down below along with links to where you can go to get those particular items. Now, if you have any questions or you feel there's anything I missed in this video, go ahead and post in the comment section down below. I will respond to you. I thank you all for watching. Until next time, forget everything else, focus on the finish line.
Mama.
No, can you say skyline? Can you say skyline? Yeah, see, he wants to say skyline. How about GTR? Can you say GTR?